Hey guys, looks like we are live doing the weekly artist development live stream. Here we are. Um, I'm going to turn that fan off because I forgot last time. Yeah, so unprofessional. No worries though. This is not supposed to be like a professional, um, really produced thing. We're just hanging out, talking about some stuff. Hope you guys had good weeks since last Wednesday. Gosh, I had a good week. Doing a lot of writing lately. Writing a little bit with Cody Qualls, um, but more particularly writing with an artist named Eric Golden. If you guys know me, you might know one of my uh, real passions. One of my favorite things is classic country stuff, in particular Bakersfield country, what's called Bakersfield country. So that would be like Buck Owens, and then coming into a more modern area. I mean, a lot more people than Buck Owens, but coming into a modern era, Dwight Yoakam, um, and then sort of now Eric Golden. Let's hope. We have been writing a bunch of music. Um, I guess it's worth talking about. Bakersfield country is different than Nashville country. Bakersfield country is a lot leaner and meaner. It's got both more rock and roll in it and more bluegrass in it, at least to my ears. Where Nashville stuff is polished and um, all that stuff, especially 60s, 70s, the Nashville stuff. Chet Atkins had all those strings and all those kind of things, whereas Bakersfield country was a lot more. When you think of outlaw country, it's that kind of sound of a five-piece band with a ripping lead guitar player and a cool steel player. Um, Also, a lot more Tex-Mex, because Bakersfield, California, is not far from Mexico. Those guys were getting Mexican radio stations, so you get definitely some a little more of that influence in it sometimes. Anyway, that all to say that Eric and I are very close to finishing writing his first album. I think we have 7 or 8 songs, and we just need a couple more. So, classic country record coming down the pike. That's big development for me this week. Another weird development. As much as I love classic country, if you know me, I also really like punk rock and post punk and all of those weird underground things, college radio type stuff. And I was having a conversation with one of the guys in Half Zen, which is a Denver band. And the band Fugazi came up, and I got reminded of one of my favorite all times records, which is The Argument. The band is Fugazi. The album is The Argument, and that came out in 2001. And I remember it coming out, and it was just one of those records that just floored me in that it just is not a genre you've heard before. You could call it punk, sure, and Fugazi, of course, punk royalty, but man, that record is just so inventive and so incredibly cool. And you know, uh, you guys might not love it. Not everybody likes punk. Not everybody likes classic country. But man, isn't it cool to get reminded of an album that you love? There is that thing where you almost forget about an album that was a huge part of your life at one time, and then you go, "Oh yeah, that record." And you go back and listen, and all those feelings come up, and all the memories of that time. Being 2001, I was just learning how to record music. I had just opened my recording studio in Florida, which was just in a house, but I was just starting to get paid to make records for people. And man, all those memories just flooded back hearing The Argument by Fugazi. Incredibly cool bass playing, really inventive drumming. Anyway, just talking about a few things going on with me. We had a great gig with Cody at 29th Street Mall in Boulder. If you listen to our podcast, Justin and Adrian's Music Life Weekly, we talked obviously about the show already, but for me, it was a rough one because it was really hot. I mean, first of all, Boulder is incredibly beautiful, and the 29th Street Mall, the view that you get from just standing in this outdoor mall next to a Sephora or a pretzel shop, whatever. And there's just incredible views. But it was very hot. And I made the mistake of just chugging water right before our first set and then jumping around a bit and jumping around a little too much for the amount of water I had chugged. And nothing bad happened, but it was touch and go. You should probably sip. We're talking performance stuff. Maybe don't just down 16 ounces of water right before you jump on stage and jump around and stomp around, which I found myself doing. I don't normally. We're going to get some listener questions, by the way, so it won't all be my rambling. But occasionally, depending on what's going on at a show, I find it effective to stomp on the stage really hard. It kind of sometimes wakes everybody up a little bit because you're shaking the whole stage doing it. And it was just one of those shows, with the heat, and we just had to put a little extra muscle on the gas pedal at some points during the show. That said, it was amazing to be back playing with Cody, and the crowd was just unbelievable. The nicest, most attentive. It's amazing how many people in the crowd, maybe even 100 people, were singing along and know the lyrics to a lot of Cody's songs. Not just Caitlin, who knows all the words to all the songs, but it was a shocking amount of people that know the words to Cody's original songs. And anyway, yeah, it was a great week. So yeah, I think I'm gonna start doing some little update things. If you guys hate it, tell me you hate it. Whatever. We'll make it good. Yeah. What's our takeaway? Our takeaway is sip water. Anyway, yeah, let's get to some of these listener questions, guys. Thank you so much for writing in and asking some of these questions. Someone, and I got past this question, so I don't know who asked this. One of the questions was about how to find musicians to play with, both as maybe a member of your band or a songwriting partner, or just backing musicians to back you and gig. All of the different ways that you might want to meet musicians that you can make music with, right? So I have this talk with a lot of artist development clients, so I've got a bit of a spiel. I'm just going to jump in. First off, one of the best things you can do is make sure that you have some sort of presence online. Doesn't even need to be social media. There is a website called Reverb Nation that is basically, you just put up a profile page and it allows you to put up pictures and examples of your music and et cetera, et cetera. Or of course you could do social media. My one caveat there is if you're going to do social, it's probably a good idea to make sure that you're somewhat active. Not every day is necessary, but a social media page that has not been updated in 3 years doesn't make it look like you're taking things very seriously. But again, if you don't want to deal with social media, just get a Reverb Nation page. Um, no need for a website or anything. A website that I have seen people have success with lately, and I've had success with lately, finding a bass player for a gig, well, an ongoing gig, is a website called bandmix.com. It's very similar. It's Facebooky. You just make a profile. Actually, it's not that much like Facebook. There's no posting or anything. You just make a profile for yourself and you say what kind of opportunities you're looking for, what kind of things you do, what instruments you play. Are you a vocalist? Blah, blah, blah. Craigslist used to be the thing. And in fact, funny story, Adrian and I met due to a Craigslist ad. No, not that type of Craigslist ad. When I had first moved to Denver, I was looking for any work I could get. I already had a day job that I was moving out here, and had lined up, but I just needed any extra work I could get. So I was answering Craigslist ads, and wound up meeting Adrian. That said, that was 10 years ago, and I think Craigslist has stopped being it's a less of a high quality place to find musicians these days. I think the website Craigslist may just be less popular than it used to be. I think Facebook Marketplace has really maybe taken some wind out of those sails. Anyway, my point is, Bandmix I found to be very effective. Also, Facebook groups, wherever you are in the country, I guarantee you there are. Here in Denver, we have Denver Music Match is a Facebook group. Denver Musician Finder is a Facebook group. I bet there's a dozen. You know what I mean? So if you can stand being on Facebook, join some of those local musician groups, start networking. That's a great place to be. So for online things, we're talking Facebook groups, Bandmix. What to do for real life things. There is such a thing as going to open mics. And open mics, if you don't know, are just evenings where they let more or less anybody get up and do a certain amount of time. Some of them are very organized. Some of them are a lot looser. Just showing up at some of those can be a way to find people who are also interested in performing. That you can have varying amounts of success there. One of the issues is a lot of people who do open mics and this is no criticism whatsoever, doing open mics is sort of the height of their ambitions. They're not looking to do other gigs or do other whatever. And some people are, but some people aren't. So you might have varying levels of success there. And don't get me wrong, there's some high quality ones out there. Just a caveat on that. One of the things I always advise people to do is finding people that you would want to hire, but are a level or two above where you currently are. Whatever, could be more than that, could be 10 levels above where you are. And knowing that you're not going to get the bass player from the biggest, local band that's selling 300 tickets a night and whatever. You're not going to get that bass player to join your startup band, but going up to that guy, meeting that guy, and asking him who he would recommend is a really great way to find people, because musicians tend to know musicians, and very often there's someone who's been in the scene for a while is going to know people, and they might know people who are also trying to break into the scene. And so if there are bands in particular that you really like, if you love an artist, asking someone in that band, hey, um, who would you recommend as a guitar player, bass player, whatever you need? Um, that's maybe one of the most effective ways to do it, is just literally find people you think are really great and ask them, hey, you might not want to play with me at this level. And if you do, great, that's awesome, problem solved. But if you don't, who would you recommend? And that's some of my strongest advice. Talking like bigger theory about like finding real collaborators and real, band members and team members and people that you have real chemistry with. I can speak to it a little bit now, and of course, I would happy to speak to anybody one-on-one about it. I've been very lucky to have several musical marriages in my life, by which I mean really tight collaborations with people, where we were writing together, we were planning the whole thing together, we were dreaming together, we were essentially just like people have work spouses. They were musical marriages, um, and some of them lasted. One of them lasted 10 years, um, where it was me and the singer I was working with at the time, and we were musically a couple. And of course, Adrian. Besides the personal stuff, we before things got personal, we had a musical marriage. We were just team members, and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, to sort of speak to that, I think one of the most important things you can do is be honest about your goals and your passions, and uh, authentic. If you're looking for those, and you don't have to have like some crazy musical romantic um partnership. It could just be finding good band members that are all on the same page and all want to go the same direction and all want to do this stuff. And I know it sounds counter, like it sounds like I'm saying nothing here, but really, um a lot of the problems I've seen is people not being honest, going along just to get along. And that's not to say you shouldn't compromise, and that's not to say you shouldn't whatever. But I think the more real you are, the more real people are going to be with you. And you don't you run less of a risk of getting a year or two down the road and going, actually, I didn't really, want to play heavy metal, or whatever it is. Um, of course, things change in life, and I've had several musical marriages because they can fall apart just like a real marriage. Um, uh, but yeah, so honesty is number one. The number two thing is, I would really underline, chemistry is built. Chemistry, it's very rare to have immediate chemistry and just like bang, we're 100% on the same page. We get all the same references. We get all the same musical influences. A lot of that is built. A lot of that is finding people that you feel like maybe you have values in common, whatever. And just taking the time to build that rapport and build that chemistry and that collaboration thing. And I guess my main thing there is don't think it should be like from day one magic. It isn't always that way. It's gonna be building that relationship and that chemistry and those shared references. And one of the reasons the band that we play with most of the time, it's a couple different drummers, but it's me and Adrian and Stax, and we do several bands together, Cody and Petty Nicks and all this stuff. Um, and part of why it's easy to sound great with those guys is I have years of chemistry with them. Was it fine the first time we played together? Sure, it was fine. Um, but over years, you just get, all those shorthands and all the things. So if you're looking for that chemistry and that magic match and that, we all know, I think, a lot of what success artistically in music is chemistry and is people playing off of each other. Um, but Rome wasn't built in a day, and don't expect that it's just going to be magic from day one, because again, those relationships are built, not just found. Um, that's another that brings up another point about finding people to play with, which is it can be a really great idea, and I don't know why no one ever talks about this. It can be a really great idea to ask around with people, who are not necessarily music people, but what I was talking to, artist development client in California, who's a pretty serious hobbyist volleyball player. I assume beach volleyball. I don't know. Um, and let's use that as an example. Maybe asking around in your volleyball group of the people that are people you get along with and you enjoy and you play volleyball with, blah blah blah, teammates and stuff. Just asking around, like, hey, I'm looking for musicians to play with. Hey, I'm looking for a guitar player to back me up. Do you have any friends who play? Do you know anyone who plays? Do any of you guys play? Um, because a lot of times that magic chemistry, that lightning in a bottle thing, comes from like shared values, and you're more likely to find shared values with people that you are already interacting with, friends of friends who are already around. I met one of the people I was musically married to for a decade, the lead singer of No Address. We met in a poetry class at FSU, and I thought he was a good writer, and we discovered we had sort of good tastes, not good taste, similar tastes. We kind of reacted to the same thing in writing and poetry, and I bet we were casual friends in that class, for most of a semester before we found out that he was trying to put a band together and I was already playing all over the place. And I remember being like, "Oh wow, you play? Like that's crazy. That's never come up." But we met in that kind of like shared, um, that's something we both cared about. Yeah, I've probably gone on long enough about that. Uh, Another user question, listener question, user. What am I talking about? Anyway, another listener question was, I think from Caitlin. Thank you, by the way, Caitlin. You're being great. Um, she was asking, what hand placement suggestions for when your mic is on the stand. This is actually something both Adrian and I are pretty passionate about. The number one thing that makes us passionate about is uh, really, 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 it does not look good to touch the stand part of the stand. And I know it must be very attractive for people to, because I see people all the time that want to hold the stand or hold whatever. The reason we say that, and we're not the only ones who say that, it's kind of a performance coaching thing. It often looks to people like you're sort of doing this, which is just it looks nervous, it looks weird, and even the weird thing. One of the things to remember is the audience does not see the stand very well, so it can just look like you're holding your hand in the air pointlessly. You know. Um, So, to answer the question, then, what do we do when when we want to use our hands, even though the mic is on the stand? Um, the easy, the easiest thing is that you're just going to grab the actual mic itself. Um, even though it's on a stand, uh, it still communicates pretty well visually. I'm going to grab a stand. It communicates pretty well visually. There's one right behind me. That you're holding the mic. Bam. Bam. Sorry, you guys. Right. If I, I can just literally grab the mic while it's on the stand. Kind of doing a Lemmy vibe here. Like this, and you could, of course, go back and forth between hands. You could do this for a little while. You'll move it over here. That to me is pretty much the extent of it, with the one possible exception of using both hands. The thing I would caution you of grabbing the mic with both hands is it is an intense look. It looks a little bit like it's at least reminiscent of someone yelling at you. It looks a little like you're yelling, right? So that could be good or bad. We could have a very intense part of the song where we are angry or we are upset or we are any of those things, and we are, double handing it. That said, that might not be the best look for a part of a song where it isn't intense, right? We don't want to be communicating high intensity when it's a happy part of a song or a fun part of the song or whatever. So that would be the only thing to be cautious about with, both hands like that. Other than that, the simple answer, I'll give you two simple answers for what to do with your hands. Number one, nothing. You don't need to do anything with your hands. You're fine with your hands down by your side. No one's looking at your hands. I believe me, I get it. I've dealt with it. You feel awkward. I get it. But the short answer is you don't need to do anything with your hands. The longer answer is what I call elbows, which is whether the mic's on the stand or you're holding a mic. All it is just keep your arm down by your side, lift your hand up at the elbows, gesture, do any of the things that just, Caitlin and I were talking this week about, just let your hand have a mind of its own, just at the elbow. If you do both, look at how much bigger that looks, right? Like if I'm doing this, like that seems way bigger, right? So I might use that for a big part of the song. Again, the whole idea is what a good performance does is it visually helps the audience hear the song, right? You're just contributing to them hearing and understanding the song. That's what a good performance is. I've harped on it a million times. It's not about jumping around. It's not about whatever. It's just doing what you can do to help the audience understand, oh, this is an intense part of the song. Oh, this is a quiet part of the song. You're just attempting to give cues. And then I had one last question, and it sort of relates to what we're just talking about. Somebody had a suggestion in a comment, and I forgot their username, and I didn't recognize it anyway. So I apologize for not shouting you out. They were talking about why you don't see big stars doing a lot of these rules that I set out. And of course, they're not my rules. I recommend Tom Jackson's book. He figured out a way to talk about things that many of us who performers just had never figured out how to talk about it. There's lots of stuff out there. Great performance coaches. Lang Bliss in Nashville, great guy. Look him up. Amazing performance coach. Anyway, the question was about the rules, and they're not really rules. I sometimes say the rules, don't do this, do this, do this. They're really just guidelines for when we are starting out in performing. There are things that you can do to make sure that your performance is good and solid while you're on the way to building your own charisma and your own power and your own attitude. And you could point to an Adele performance and go, she's not doing anything that Justin mentioned at all, or she's breaking all the rules. And it's like, yeah, she's Adele. She has built the charisma and the performing power and just like all the stuff. She doesn't need the training wheels. And I, not to be diminutive, all of these rules will build into your natural performance eventually. And there's so many things that you see great performers do that you might see Adrienne do, where she's no longer thinking about her angles. She's no longer thinking about what she's doing with her hands. It's because she's practiced it enough that all those things have become second nature. And once you've kind of integrated them just into yourself, long story short, the big superstars are sometimes not the greatest role models for us to copy. People already know their songs. People already love them. People paid a ton of money to see them. Blah, blah, blah. There's a million reasons that something that a Taylor Swift might be doing is not necessarily going to work for you in your smaller room gig as you're just kind of building yourself up and finding your confidence and your power as a performer, right? Yeah, so that's that. Again, they're not rules. Everything, somebody makes every single thing work. Iggy Pop smeared peanut butter all over himself and, jumped into broken glass on stage. It worked for him, you know what I mean? But he was on a kind of a different level of doing things. So that's the whole thing. Guys, thank you so very much. Again, it is touching and humbling and just really awesome to get this chance to share some of what I know with you guys. I love doing it, and it's so great that people are watching and are paying attention and are writing in with questions. So please keep them coming. I will be back next Wednesday. I have a gig next Wednesday, so I might have to move it, or I'm going to go live from the venue that I have the gig at. I'm going to figure out how possible that is. We start at 7:30, so I may. Anyway, I'll let everyone know if I change the day. That said, normally Wednesdays, 7:00 Denver time. That is 6:00 California and 9:00 New York. For the person listening in New York, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. That is awesome. Guys, thanks a lot. Please let me know what I can do. Thank you again, and I will see you for sure next week. All right, see you guys. Awkwardly ending the stream. Here we go.